Hey, good evening and welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're coming to you on KSHP Radio 1400 AM, streamed throughout the world, and on YouTube, which you're watching live. If you have the picture, you can see us at Fired Up with Bob Irwin on the YouTube channel. We're here every Tuesday with a new show from 5 to 6 p.m. My guest tonight is murder defense attorney Clark Patrick. Clark, if you can give a little bit of your background, we'll get the place on the road here.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. Like I said, my name is Clark. Grew up in northern Montana. Been around firearms my whole life, hunting and shooting. And in the late 70s, I did a little stint with the U.S. Army, being a tank commander for 6 years. And for the last, about 10 and a half years now, I've been practicing here in Las Vegas, solely in the area of murder defense.
Interesting guy. So Clark is one of my best guests because he defends murder cases, and his background in firearms lets him understand a lot of what's going on. Hopefully you will never meet Clark in a professional manner, because if you do, it's because you're in a lot of trouble. We do not any longer take live calls on the air because of the difference in the few seconds between the radio and the YouTube show. However, any questions or comments can be sent to bob@firedupmail.com. I think we have that one of these signed. There you go. If you jot that address down or watch the tape later, you will see it, and you can send questions or comments. If they're for Clark, just send them to me, and I will forward them to the person who's supposed to get it. This show is about guns, politics related to, and self-defense issues. Obviously, in the United States, there are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every single week. They're usually not covered by the mainstream media unless they're bad shootings. So what we like to do is counteract that a little bit by presenting some shootings that are good. I pick out cases that I've run across that are good, sometimes bad, sometimes questionable, but each one is picked out because it has some element in it that we want to get across to people who own guns for home defense or carry for concealed carry purposes, that they might want to think about what they would do if they were in the same position as the guy this happened to. We normally don't use names on those cases because it's what happened and how the police or the attorneys or the courts reacted to it that matter for our listeners' education. So we'll start off with 3 or 4 or 5 of those, and we'll go from there. This is the first story, is a local story carried by Channel 8 News and every other media outlet in town. Happened on the 17th, a couple days ago. A homeowner told police he shot a man twice who entered his home through a dog door because he feared the intruder would harm his family. The homeowner's wife first noticed the suspect, who had a large knife in his pocket, in the backyard around midnight. The 40-year-old suspect then began banging on the back door before he entered the home through the doggy door. The homeowner shot the intruder twice in the face and in the arm, saying he felt uneasy when the suspect moved toward him. When the police arrived, the homeowner put his hands in the air and told them where his gun was. They found the suspect sitting on the floor of the kitchen. He was treated at a local hospital here, UMC, and booked into the Clark County Detention Center. A neighbor reported to police the same man had attempted to break into his house, another home nearby, just prior to this attempted burglary. When searched at the detention center, the correction officer found a small container of crystal-like substance believed to be methamphetamine. The suspect told police he had the knife for protection because he was being chased. He's facing charges of burglary with a deadly weapon, attempted burglary, and so on and so on. And of course, possession of methamphetamine. You always, if you're a burglar, want to be sure and carry your drugs with you while you're committing a crime. Charge. Yeah, absolutely. You get something extra you can plea bargain with. This is an interesting case because, one, to us, it's a local case here, but he fired at the guy because he thought the guy was moving toward him in a dangerous manner.
Well, I think uneasy is probably a nice word. I mean, if this guy's crawled in through your dog door and is coming towards you, I think I'd be feeling a little more than uneasy. And I mean, it's absolutely a great shooting. Now, when the suspect is banging on the back door, you call the police and say, somebody's banging on my back door. It's midnight. They have a knife.
Yeah.
Please come, and the cops will get there as fast as they can. But once he decides to break into the house, whether it be through the dog door or kicking the door in, then absolutely, I think uneasy is a nice term. I think scared and threatened, life threatened is probably more along the lines. And of course, you can shoot him at that point.
Yeah, and at this point, we don't expect any charges against the homeowner. He clearly had reason to fear for his wife's safety and his safety. Good shoot. When I look at cases like this is a very, very common type of case. You need a smaller doggy door. There's ways you want to address this ahead of time. What could he have done different to not have this happen? I assume he has a large dog. It doesn't mention that the dog was in there barking, so maybe he doesn't have a large dog. He just has a large dog or left over.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because you have a big dog door that a man can fit through. You're thinking that there's a dog that's that size that needs to use it, and that dog's going to be raising all kinds of hell.
The defense can be, my client was so small that he fit through a doggy door, and therefore
a dog door made for a poodle or a Shih Tzu or something. I don't know.
Anyway, mention again, you can reach us with a mail at bob@firedupmail.com. We offer free concealed carry permit classes at the gun store here every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. You can find those on our website, thegunstorlasvegas.com. This one is a sad story. It's also a local story. The Review Journal reported on the 19th, a man was arrested Wednesday in connection with his 12-year-old son's suicide. The Las Vegas police said Metro officers responded back on February 13th to a residence in the 1600 block of Western Lily Street on a report of a child being shot. They found a 12-year-old male juvenile with an apparent gunshot wound. The child was transported to UMC, where he was later pronounced dead. The investigation initially indicated the gunshot wound was self-inflicted, a fact that was later confirmed by the coroner's office. The investigation revealed the firearm recovered at the scene was previously purchased by the kid's father. A Las Vegas policeman said the father has a criminal history that includes felony convictions. He isn't allowed to own guns. When asked how he bought the gun, the police spokesman replied that he didn't know. District court records show the father pleaded guilty to grand larceny in 2014 and was on probation. He's been booked. He's 31 years old. He's been booked into the detention center on child abuse and neglect with substantial bodily harm and resulting in death, as well as possession of a gun by a prohibited person in connection with the death. The child actually died on the 13th from the gunshot wound to the head. And the police department's abuse and neglect detail have determined the death was a suicide. I hate these cases, and you look at this, and on top of leaving the gun where a child who apparently was depressed, he had some mental issues from what some of the reports said, and all of this is pretty subjective because you don't know what really appeared in the paper was really true or not. But he has a gun in the house that's accessible to this teenager.
And I think that's the biggest problem. It's he's not supposed to have the gun because he's a convicted felon, but I think the bigger problem is that it was accessible to this child and it was not properly secured, either in a lockbox in a safe or even with a simple gun lock that you can get for free anywhere to lock it, to make sure that if a child finds it, that they cannot use it to shoot themselves or anybody else.
All guns now come with a gun lock in the box by, industry standard now. Some places require it, but you can't buy a gun without a lock, and most of the states require that the dealers have locks or give locks. We do that here. We've been giving away locks for 35 years.
And that's the thing. Even if you buy a second-hand gun that doesn't come with the lock, and I'm sure it's not just the gun store. I'm sure any gun store will give you a lock, or they're cheap to go probably Walmart and $4 or $5 and buy one, and make sure that the gun is not usable by a child.
I just, there's so many ways to prevent this. Obviously, for the Brady folks, the guy didn't get a background check when he bought his gun because he's a felon.
Well,
so
I don't know. I don't know
unless he bought it before
the felony, because I mean, he only pled. He pled a little over a year ago to the felony, and it's not clear whether or not he bought the gun before that or after that. So if he bought it before it, then he was supposed to give it up to parole and probation when he was on parole, and that's usually one of the
first things you get.
And the first things the judge orders is that you're to turn over any firearms, and you can't have a firearm on your possession in your house. If he bought it afterwards, that's a whole different story.
Well, he's, this guy's going away. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You hate to see parents that have had a tragedy like this also get charged with a crime, but we've got a few of them lately that are now being charged because they
exactly. You just can't do it. I mean, it's too easy to secure the firearm so that.
I mean, he's going to plead what? I couldn't take it with me because I can't have it in my car because I'm a criminal. I mean, it's just dumb. We teach, if you're interested, a ladies only shooting and personal firearm safety class twice a month. Second and fourth Friday with a local well-known instructor, Maggie Mordaunt. Next class is February 25th. You can sign up again at thegunstorelasvegas.com. This is another kind of a sad case. The Memphis Commercial Appeal, which we all read, reported on the 18th several subjects apparently attempted to rob a Citgo gas station on Dunn Avenue just after noon. This is in, I didn't put the town. It's in Florida, someplace. Oh, Mississippi. I'm sorry. One suspect and an employee of the little store exchanged gunfire. A witness who was working on a truck outside Jim's Auto Repair across the street from the station heard a shot. About 3 minutes later, he heard another shot and saw three men run out of the gas station as the owner chased after them. One of the suspects was shot by the owner and fell. That suspect then got up, fell again, actually a couple of times, and trying to get to the Cherry Gardens apartments before the owner, who was chasing, grabbed him and drug him back to the store. When the owner went inside to call the police, the 75-year-old witness who's holding this wounded suspect down put his foot on him so he couldn't run away again. The other two men fled in two cars. The store was also robbed 2 weeks prior. The suspects have been arrested. No suspects, I'm sorry, have been arrested in that robbery. They think this might be the same crew. They're now searching for the two additional suspects. Both men were reported transported to the regional medical center in critical condition. The robber and the 20-year-old employee, unfortunately, the 20-year-old employee died at the hospital. Neighbors gathered outside the store to mourn the employee who had been taking classes at Mississippi Community College to become a police officer. A woman who lives nearby and visited the store frequently sobbed at the crime tape, saying he was just a kid. All he wanted to do was go to school and get an education. He didn't ask to be shot or killed. We know from the video in the store that when the robbery took place, the first guy in the store had a gun. The employee drew his and fired. There may be some indication that the guy said, "I'm going to kill you anyway," or something. You can never question somebody's judgment to do that. If you feel that you need to fire, we're not there looking at all the details of the case, and you have to make your own decision. All gunfights have losers, and everybody loses in some sense in a gunfight usually. This young man trying to be a police officer, gave up his life. The owner chasing the guy with the gun. I understand that his employee
had just been shot. Yeah.
and he just went after the guy, and he'd probably been on good grounds in Mississippi if he'd killed the guy. But
Right.
When you chase a suspect, I know the heat of the moment. If you think this through, he would have been better off staying and applying what medical aid he could, rather than pursuing a guy that he knows is armed.
Sure.
As he's fortunate he wasn't shot, and he's very fortunate the guy from the gas station across the street, the older gentleman, was able to intervene and help him and hold the guy down, and this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked about that several times, that when somebody's running away, it's not necessarily self-defense. When you start shooting a fleeing suspect, or even a fleeing felon, they've broken off, and then the tables can change to who's the new aggressor.
Exactly.
Let him go, and yeah, he should have helped by providing first aid to his employee.
Well, I can see that he's running away, and the store owner shoots him. Him coming back and claiming, I had disengaged.
Yep.
Yeah, I shot the other guy, but I shot the clerk in self-defense. He pulled a gun on me, and now the owner is chasing me with a gun, and I was afraid I was going to get killed. That's not going to go very far, but on the civil litigation side, it well could.
Yeah, very well can. Because that's not reasonable doubt. That's 51%, or a percentage of, and the more percentage the owner of the store is found at fault, the more he's going to pay the guy.
You always have that situation where the guy can claim, I was bad guy before, but I was leaving and I was trying to defend myself,
right?
Because they were chasing me with a gun. I was in fear of my life. Again, it's a problem in court. You get to meet lots of lawyers when that happens. We are also want to report. This is a little bit. This case we just pulled tonight, actually, so I didn't give Clark time to look at it. The Hendersonville Lightning, which we all love and read, reported on the 16th in Upward, North Carolina. That's the name of the town. A homeowner shot a 38-year-old suspect who burglarized his home. The sheriff's office responded to a 911 call at 8 p.m. Friday about a burglary in progress. The homeowner had just returned to his house to find a man in a white Cadillac truck parked outside. That pickup truck was filled with about $4,000 worth of stuff taken from the resident's house. The homeowner took out his cell phone to call 911. The burglar was out there, grabbed it from him, and threw it away. The suspect then pointed a firearm at the homeowner, who in turn took his legally possessed concealed carry weapon and fired it. He apparently missed the guy completely. The suspect turned and fled. The homeowner quickly went inside to call 911 on his landline. While he was speaking to the operator, the dispatch operator, the suspect returned and fired shots in the direction of the homeowner. The suspect then turned and fled again. Deputies were able to identify him as the suspect and the owner of the truck. He's a local guy from Hendersonville. Remained on the run until he was arrested on domestic violence related issues on Sunday. A couple days later, he was served with 5 additional warrants from the incident on Friday night. Deputies have charged him with robbery with a deadly weapon, felony larceny, secondary burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, intent to kill, possession of firearm when under a domestic violence order. He's being held in their local jail at $575,000 bail. A couple things here. This is pretty good. The CCW holders got a guy pointing a gun at him, and he draws and fires. That's always an interesting call, to draw a gun on somebody who's already got
a gun pointed at you.
Generally, you have the advantage to do that if you're skilled in drawing your gun and you don't fumble with it, because it'll take him a half a beat to realize you're drawing a gun. So you get the first shot, and if you hit him, you assume that it's like television.
Right.
The bad guy would just fall over and die right there.
Yeah, not so much. Not always.
No, very often they go, ow, and they fire back.
Right.
There's a lot of danger in doing that. Can't second guess the guy. because you don't know, and it doesn't tell us the distances or the skill levels. Although he missed the guy, so I assume his skill level wasn't off the chart. But having the gun saved his own life. The reason I pulled this, the unusual thing is here, the bad guy slaps his phone away, so he can't call 911. He goes into the house, gets his landline. It doesn't tell you where the second thing took place, whether the guy was outside, you know, holding the phone, or he's still in the house. But the guy comes back.
Bad guy comes back,
tries to
shoot him again. Yeah.
Don't assume because the guy ran away that he ain't coming back.
Gonna say he ran away. Yeah.
Remain alert.
Keep alert.
The
situational awareness.
As it turned out, of course, that got more video on the cell phone of the guy, you know, whatever, and the police caught the guy. It doesn't actually say the video was on. He was on his landline second time, so we'll presume it was just that he got a good look at the truck, and the cops, small town, knew who it likely was. Went over into his house and arrested him on all these other warrants, and it's not over until the police are there and everything's in hand.
Right.
So this is a little bit better case for a mistake that the owner really got away with one here, and I'm glad he did. This is from CBS TV4 in Denver on the 17th in Littleton, just outside of Denver. A resident shot and killed a suspect who had robbed him and attempted to steal his vehicle. Won't be charged. The district attorney in Jefferson County announced the decision Wednesday. The shooting occurred at a residence 5400 block of Taft Court on January 24th, just after 9 a.m. The incident involved the homeowner and two males. This is kind of a follow-up on a Craigslist story that we talked about earlier, a few weeks ago. The two suspects in a gold Mustang responded to a Craigslist ad. When they got to the house on Taft Court, they forced their way in and tied up the homeowner. The homeowner got loose, ran out, and began firing at one 38-year-old subject who was driving away in the homeowner's vehicle. He's firing at the car. That suspect was killed while he was trying to get away. The DA said the standard procedure for law enforcement to conduct an investigation to any death resulting from a gunshot wound. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office did a very thorough investigation in this case following their presentation of evidence regarding the shooting. The decision was made that criminal charges were not warranted. The second suspect in the robbery, a 54-year-old guy, was arrested a few days after the robbery, captured on videotape using credit cards that were stolen from the homeowner.
You know, the homeowner has a little bit of luck behind him that they didn't press charges, because once the two men were driving away, obviously it disengaged and were leaving, and he started shooting at him, that could have easily gone the other way.
It could have. And if this same case happened here, you would here in Southern Nevada, you would very likely be charged with a crime.
Yeah, I think that's
at least be indicted, and it would go to a grand jury, or you know, you'd have a preliminary hearing where your attorney could say, Your Honor, I was under stress, and you know, he's being robbed, and so forth and so on. And
you know, the homeowner, unfortunately, certainly not going to have an easy time with the civil case that's going to come out of this.
No, I'm sure they will, because the guy killed the guy's dead. You can't hurt anybody more than that. So here comes the lawsuit. And when you look at those, you'll have people that will tell you that when they address cases like this, to make sure the guy dies because dead people can't sue you. Oh, but they can.
Oh, yes, they can. There's all kinds of people that can sue you over this.
And you get more people sue you. And, you know, if the guy's dead, how much more can you hurt him than that?
Right.
I mean, he's as hurt as can be. A dead guy will sue you for lots of money. So, and he's really hard to attack in court from your defense attorney's standpoint because he's dead.
Right.
So you're going to sit there and tell the jury this guy was a deadbeat, bad guy, horrible person while these little kids are crying over him. And
no.
Try to avoid that if you can.
No matter what they were doing before, once they get dead, they're saints, every one of them.
They're angels.
Absolutely.
They're angels. Kind of a private note here. I did a piece on FFL dealers, gun dealers, having difficulty picking out a straw sale from somebody who's innocently trying to buy a gun for their wife or girlfriend or son or whatever. And the problem it is to tell, for dealers, to tell a straw sale from somebody, an attempted crime committing from somebody who just innocently doesn't know what the law is and,
Right.
and doesn't understand it. And we have lots of things where you can buy a gun for a friend and whatever, and that's not a straw sale. But anyway, I wrote the article. It's in on ammoland.com, one long word, ammoland.com. And it just went up today. It's kind of a cute story of what looked like a straw sale to one of my clerks on the counter. And I looked on the camera, and it was a guy that I knew buying a gun. And it was no intent at a straw sale and so forth, but he was getting a gun for his wife to use to defend her house. And that's fine. But anyway, the senior policy and public safety manager of Brady Campaign and Center to Prevent Gun Violence had attacked me on the website now. If you go to ammoland.com, you'll see that and his response of how wrong I am and the background checks actually stop crimes and so forth, and he's full of baloney. This is a guy who has never stood behind the counter of a gun shop and watched real people at work. But the title is very impressive. It seems, in his opinion, whenever one party buys a gun for another party, as in a gift or whatever, it's a straw sale and prohibited by federal law. He quotes a court case that is, his interpretation of it is amazingly wrong. And I'm going to have Clark delve into it, but you'll see it for yourself. And I'm sure on ammoland.com by tomorrow, there'll be a few other dozen answers and responses. And it's one of those things everybody weighs into, but I'm officially have been attacked by the Brady guys and told that I should in the future tell the truth, which I'm going to try to, just like Hillary. I'm going to try to tell the truth.
Okay.
We've got a problem coming up in California. The lieutenant governor there and former San Francisco mayor, his name is Gavin Newsom, has a ballot measure coming up which changes California law dramatically. If you live over there, look out. It looks like this is going to go through. It makes possession of any magazine that holds more than 10 rounds after July 1st, 2017, a criminal act. Magazines that have been grandfathered will be ungrandfathered by this statute and have to be turned into the police or taken out of the state of California. Even besides banning magazine, it also has initial things in it to ban online mail order catalog ammunition purchases. So right now there's a sign up thing you got to do in California if you're buying ammunition. So it bans online sales of ammunition. It bans importation of ammunition purchased out of state for everyone. It criminalizes the sharing of ammunition between friends because they want to keep track of how much ammo you have, literally how much. So if you're out shooting and I give Clark 10 rounds of something, and he doesn't actually own a gun that holds those, he shouldn't have that ammunition. There's a $50 Department of Justice ammunition purchase permit in there.
How long?
That one will probably go away, but
yeah.
And ammunition sales are recorded in a new gun order database. That's how they tell if you're buying ammunition that you don't have a gun for.
Okay.
So,
well, like banning the importation of ammunition purchased out of state, I'm sure that'll work very well for them because there are no illegal drugs crossing any state lines into California.
well, that's already illegal. That's why there's no drugs.
Yeah. So I'm sure that'll work out well for them. I mean, what are they going to do at the agriculture station? Stop and check everybody's car to see?
Well, now they ask you if you have any guns or whatever that they'd be interested in, or fruits or vegetables or marijuana or drugs or
and the people who are illegally importing marijuana, I always say, yes,
Yeah,
here it
it's right
is.
here in the trunk. You know, I don't know how they believe those are possibly effective, but
Wow.
and you know, yeah, you can defend your home with 2 10-shot magazines instead of 1 15-shot magazine, of course. The problem is that people are it's going to create, this is to stop crime, it's going to create,
More
rough
crime.
guess, 500,000 more criminals.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's
that are
going to
in
create.
possession of this stuff they're not allowed
absolutely.
to have. So hopefully you'll get beaten back. Honestly, in California, I think you guys are
And what about reloading components?
well, that's by ATF is how long ago that any portion of a cartridge is the cartridge. So the shell casings, primers, bullets, powder are actually ammunition. If under federal ruling now, if you are a felon and you have gunpowder, that's possession of ammunition. And possession of ammunition for a felon is also a crime, just like possession of firearms. So I just finished a long drawn-out court case defending Bass Pro on that very issue, that somebody bought gunpowder that theoretically he wasn't old enough because it could be used in a pistol. But the people going after him lost because actually when he bought it, that wasn't the law. It turned out they were just a few days late and the law changed after he made the purchase.
Good.
If you want to have printing done, talk to American Printing downtown, 1500 East Fremont. Friends of mine, great work, great prices. Stop in at American Printing, tell them Bob sent you, and away we go. I am always now addressing a bit on terrorism on this show. Yeah, we just had another terrorist attack. This happened to be a white guy going out and shooting people, and apparently it's not a terrorist issue, the guy in Minnesota. But this is why I encourage everybody to carry a gun. We've had several terrorist attacks, a stabbing one recently in a restaurant and so on, and they're still deciding if the guy could or could not have been a terrorist that went into the restaurant and started hacking people with a machete. But
I wonder if you got a background check before you bought the machete.
If you're caught in a terrorist attack, first try to run. If you can't run, hide. If you can't hide, fight. If you read the Constitution, it says a well-regulated militia being necessary to protect the security of a free state, us. Well-regulated, regulated in that time frame meant practiced, drilled. It doesn't mean having regulations as it's interpreted now. It meant that you were well practiced with your firearm, and that's why that statute says, so the people have a right to keep their arms, so the militia may assemble at any time to protect us from
Terrorists.
Terrorists,
At that time,
internal
it was the British.
troops, you know, French food, whatever it happened to be. But you are the militia by definition. You don't have to be a member of some organized group. It's not the National Guard. It's the people of the United States. You are the militia. If you have a carry permit, carry your gun so that you can stop attacks if they happen in your presence. We're the militia. Carry your gun.
Mm-hmm.
You have a wedding in your future? We do weddings here at the gun store too. If you hit our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com, click on special events, you'll have a whole thing about getting hitched in our wedding chapel. We have shotgun weddings and it's all just really cute. There's a court case that I need to talk about that is serious for all of us. This week, National Shooting Sports Foundation has been following a case in the Superior Court in Pennsylvania, where we have had a suit. The suit's being considered whether to dismiss a lawsuit that's being filed by some of the victims of Sandy Hook against those that manufacture or sell AR-15 rifles of the type that were used in the massacre. The plaintiff's argument is the gun manufacturer can be sued because it knew an AR-15 was not suitable for civilian use, can pierce a federal law known, that the case will pierce a federal law known as the Protection Law for Commerce Act. That's been on the books since about 2005. And what it says is that manufacturers, distributors, and retailers of firearms that are duly licensed and so forth are protected from civil liability for criminal misuse of their products. Nearly every lawsuit that has come against manufacturers or distributors in federal, state, and local courts have been turned back by this statute. Manufacturers of anything or sellers of any product are generally protected unless the product is defective, or they tell the guy to use it in a way that it's not safe to use. They contribute somehow to the misuse of the product. You buy a can of spray paint and the spray paint dealer tells you, hold a lighter in front of it and you'll have a flamethrower, and the can sucks in and blows up and burns you to death because the guy told you to do something, one, that's illegal, making a flamethrower, and two, advised you how to misuse the product. He's liable then.
Sure.
But the guy who made the can of paint and sold the can of paint and sold you the Bic lighter isn't liable because you misuse the product. So those are always dismissed in any industry. What will happen with this, if this case is upheld, none of us in this industry will be able to get insurance, because if we're not insured against the criminal misuse of our product, a rent-a-car company rents a guy a car and he drinks a quart of whiskey and runs over somebody, you can't sue the guy that rented him the car unless he was drunk at the time they gave him the car.
Right, yeah.
And there was some clear problem that they needed to stop that sale. This lawsuit will go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, there is no doubt. If we lose this one on the gun side, the gun industry goes away. No one will be able to withstand the number of lawsuits that every time a gun is misused. If we sell a gun and it breaks, it misfires, malfunctions, then we look at the manufacturer, they design it right or wrong, we can be responsible for that if we should have known it was an unsafe product. This is intentional criminal misuse of a firearm, and you blame the guy who built the gun.
Yeah.
And of course, their claim is that AR-15s are not suitable for civilian use is the basis of the suit. How many civilians out there own AR-15s and hunt and target shoot and
Wow.
Millions.
Millions. It's absolutely suitable for
You own one?
civilian use.
An AR-15?
Last time I checked, about 5.
Don't say that on the air. That could be an arsenal.
Oh. Right.
They're going to get you.
But I built my own, so that's...
Oh my God. Anyway, if this thing goes through, you need to watch this case. The gun blogs are watching it, and the court people, NRA and National Shooting Sports, because this is so dangerous, it will actually destroy the firearms industry in the United States. The Supreme Court appointments become so important. Now you understand why. They're saying the big issue in this election actually is who gets to appoint people to the Supreme Court.
I think that's right.
If you would like to have a corporate event, we do that. You can experience the thrill of shooting machine guns. Contact Melissa at thegunstorlasvegas.com or through the website. We'll get it to her, and you can set up your tour group or whatever to come down and shoot guns. I got one more idiot. There's a show on television called American Guns, that the owner of that store, the store was called Gunsmoke Guns, closed now, made the TV show, and we've had a couple of companies looking at doing a similar show here, filming customers coming in, and it's a kind of a fun place to work.
Yeah, absolutely.
And all the goofy things they do. But he apparently, the fellow's name is Richard Wyatt. I don't use names, but he's indicted by a federal grand jury now on 13 counts of dealing guns without a license, conspiracy, and tax-related charges. The guy's an actor, I guess, and has this gun shop, but what he did was, because of some federal problems doing his audits and so forth, a lot of missing guns and things, and there were some problems with his transactions, selling guns without the paperwork and this and that, probably for the benefit of television, but they were real guns and out the door they went. I don't know, but they pulled his license a couple of years ago, and so he can't operate legally a firearms retailer. Whether he's innocent or guilty of the first charges, I didn't even want to comment. These charges, however, he wanted to keep doing the show and doing business, and apparently the producers of the show didn't know that his license got jerked by the feds.
Right.
So he got somebody else's license and whited out the address and changed it to his address, because we send each other Xerox copies of our licenses.
Right.
And we have a way of checking to see if it's a real license, which most of us do. But, you know, if you know the company, a lot of people don't. So anyway, he kept on selling guns under a fake federal firearms license.
Oh, they have no sense of humor for that, do they?
None whatsoever. You know, what you do when you lose your license is you get them to license your cousin. You know, it's kind of like gambling licenses in Nevada. You know, they go down the line until they find some relative of yours who can pass the licensing check.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of ways for him to continue. Because he could do the TV show. They're not going to stop him from doing that. He just has to do it with, you know, some other ways around it. But anyway, he kept running this thing with a fake license, and here they show up, IRS and ATF and the FBI and
But that made for good reality TV.
Oh, the trial worked great. It's you know, there are gun dealers that shouldn't be dealing. He was one of them, and he lost his license. Fair and square, did this, whatever it was, and he lost his license. Fine. You know, when the feds are all over you, yeah. Not smart. Once again, we have concealed carry firearms classes every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday here at the gun store. You can find it on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. While we're there, if you want to friend us on Facebook, that would be delightful. That'll put you on our mailing list, and you get all kinds of stuff from us all the time. Guns.com reported last week on the 12th, Republican congressional lawmakers have blocked another bill favored by gun control advocates to fund research by the Center for Disease Control. This is the thing where they want the Center for Disease Control to run studies on firearms deaths and injuries and so forth. Anyway, this was put forth by a congressman in New York named Mike Honda. He's from California. He wants them to investigate death issues. He says our nation faces tremendous challenge from gun violence, but brilliant Americans are being killed, so the children can't grow up and find ways to solve problems. He previously offered legislation to restrict body armor sales to civilians. I particularly love that one. So store runners can't have body armor if they get robbed all the time.
Right.
Because he's worried that a criminal might get body armor.
Sure.
So he takes body armor away from the victims.
Yeah. Nice.
That makes sense. He also has put things to allow doctors to ask their patients about guns and to increase restrictions on homemade firearms, plastic guns and so forth. He blamed the National Rifle Association for stopping his legislation in the past.
Good.
That is why you should join the National Rifle Association, www.nra.org. Join up. It's $25. Get free magazines, the kind you read.
And they also have the NRA ILA that is specifically for stopping legislative garbage like this.
They do a lot of work to keep us in our firearms. There are lots of organizations. That one is the one that carries the heavy lifting.
Mhm.
There are other organizations that help with gun rights. There's lots of them, and most of them are fine. They all have their good points and bad points, and mostly good points. But if you're one of, they always claim the NRA has all these members and they're influencing all these legislators and they're afraid to vote against the NRA and so on and so on. There are 270 million gun owners in the United States, depending on who's counting. And the NRA has 5 million members. The NRA doesn't run this movement. The people run this movement that want to keep their guns.
Right.
Speaking of NRA, there is a fundraiser at the Texas station on the 27th of this month, February. You can get tickets by calling 702-308-8038, 308-8038. Next gun show up is Crossroads of the West, March 5 and 6 at Cashman Field. We'll be back here next Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. on 1400 KSHP radio and YouTube. I fired up with Bob Irwin. My guest for that will be attorney Taylor Armani and Metro Detective Phil Ramos. It's a great show to watch. The homicide detective, retired, talking to an attorney who does defenses and how they view the same crime scene differently. They're both trying to do the same thing. They're trying to stop murders.
And protect the Constitution.
Protect constitutional rights of everybody involved. And they look at crime scenes differently. It's always interesting to have Phil on with a defense attorney like that. Again, you can send questions or comments to bob@firedupmail.com and be sure and friend us on Facebook when you get a moment to do that. We want to talk a little bit about separately about the caucuses that are going on in Nevada tonight. Nevada now is all over the national news. You cannot imagine the amount of advertising we're getting buried in.
Yes.
I have in the last week gotten emails from all 6 candidates, and I can tell you who's going to win the Nevada caucuses. Because they all said if I don't send them $25 or $21 or whatever, they would lose. And I only sent money to one of them. So I know who's going to win.
There you go.
Because all the other 5 guys are going to lose.
Right.
So I really can't explain on the air who my favorite candidate is. Marco Rubio is I've known since he was a child, actually, and I was one of his Pop Warner coaches here in Las Vegas, and a bright young guy. And I'm not only because I met him a few times, but and I met his parents and so on. But he's I think a good choice. So that's who I'm caucusing for, and we'll see what happens and where it is 6 months from now.
Right. The thing that I find funny about this is with my job, all these idiots assume that I'm a Democrat. And so I get inundated with emails from all the Democrat candidates. And I have a really good time with it because they'll have like a poll on how you think Obama has done. And I don't think they really expect the answers that I email them back in their poll. No, I don't. There's no check.
Then they're not going to read it.
But just in case somebody gets bored and reads my answers, it's good times.
This election for those of us in the gun industry is, it seems like we're saying this to you every election. Hillary appears to be the front runner and probably is going to be the nominee of the Democratic Party. Unless, I can't imagine what would get Bernie through the caucuses and she's got so many votes already because of the way they give out super delegates, and she was a shoo-in to begin with. But she in her last 4 or 5 public speaking engagements, including here in Nevada, she went out of her way to say, I'm the only candidate that's going after the gun industry. We got to use the Australian model and get rid of all these AR-15s. They have no reason to be on the streets and so forth and so on. if you're not familiar with the Australian model, it was a gun turn-in disguised as a buyback. After they had a bad shooting in Tasmania, they decided that they wanted to get rid of all our guns. And in Australia, bear in mind, they don't have a Second Amendment. They have the legislature just does whatever they want. The Commonwealth does whatever they want. So the left decided guns were dangerous. And what they did is they had a gigantic gun buyback, but it wasn't voluntary. You brought your gun in and they had a chart that told you what it was worth and they gave you money, and that was it. And if you protested that it was worth more than that, you could go to a board and ask, collectors to say what it's worth, this, that, and everything. And you might get more, but the gun was gone. I mean, you're going to the board, the gun's already been chopped into a million pieces. There's a lot of pictures on the web of these guns being crashed into the ocean and melted, and and of course we all know the crime rate then in Australia went like through the roof, just like happened in England when they did the same thing there. Hillary sees that as a solution to the gun violence problem. Watch when she gives a speech and says we ought to look at the Australian solution. What she doesn't say is the Australian solution increased crime dramatically. They will tell you we have less shootings. In Japan, they have way less shootings too. They all stab each other.
Right. Well, you know what? If Hillary thinks that's the way to go, then I challenge her to leave all of her Secret Service agents home, and or the ones that do follow her, arm them with a knife and make them get rid of all their guns and see how that works.
I had some London cops in here the other day, and we got to talking about cop stuff and things, and the guy mentioned to me that they carry knives because they're not allowed to carry guns. There's a guy down the road in the flying squad car with an MP5, but they're on their own for the first 4 or 5 minutes, kind of like we are here in the United States waiting for the cops. Average response time to your home is 7 minutes nationwide. And so what do you do? And they were all kind of in shape, bruiser kind of guys. And he said, carry knives. And I said, so you stab people in self-defense? They're trying to stab us usually. So it hasn't reduced the violence.
Right. No.
It's just
the method of that violence.
Yeah. So this election is so crucial for the gun rights people. It's crucial for conservatives in general. I try to stick to gun subjects on this show. And starting next week, in the extra 10 minutes, we're going to start doing at the end. I'm going to have some politicians who are running for office here in Nevada or elsewhere come on and spend a few minutes with me talking about how they feel about the Second Amendment and gun issues in general.
Great.
And if they don't want to come on, I'm going to try and get the left-wing guys to come on and see if I can draw them out into why do you believe that, kind of things. If you believe if we take guns away from people, crime will go down. Why would you believe that? Who turns in their guns? Only the good guys. And I skipped a story where I just saw a follow-up on it on this thing they're doing in DC now, paying people not to commit crimes. And they have a program where you get a stipend from the city if you don't commit a crime, So I guess if you can go on, I was really planning to murder somebody, so I should get extra for that because I'm not doing it.
Oh, I can go every day. Hey, I didn't commit a crime today. Give me money.
We're going to be back next week. Thank you for listening. If you're going to caucus, that's where Clark and I are going right now. So go caucus and vote for somebody you like. Maybe
anybody. It doesn't matter who you vote for. Just get out and vote for a Republican.
That's all you can vote for tonight.
Well, tonight, but tonight, tomorrow, vote early, vote often.
No, that's Texas.
Oh, that's Texas. Sorry.
We're off the air. Thank you, folks, for listening. We'll see you next week.